Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And These Are Your Stories. So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by the NCIS, Naval Criminal Investigative Service, formerly known as Naval Intelligence.
Why is that?
Because it is.
And that is not a good reason.
I know, but it will all make sense.
I should hope so.
Inspector Dunn, come in.
Came as soon as I got your phone call. What's up, Lieutenant?
Well, usually Navy intelligence doesn't call in anyone else on a case. But now we're dealing with murder. Does the name A-92 mean anything to you?
A-92? Isn't that the Navy fighter that crashed in the test flight?
That's right, Inspector. We of the Navy tackled the job of seeing what went wrong with the plane. That was no accident. It was sabotage.
Sabotage?
Yes. That means, beside losing a vital aircraft, we also lost a more vital test pilot. Sabotage caused his death, or, to be blunt, murder.
That's where I come in.
Yes, Inspector.
Tell me, Lieutenant, how did the A-92 happen to crash?
Well, the plane was pretty well damaged by the time we reached it. But we did find marked indications that the landing gear had been tampered with.
Wasn't the plane closely guarded before the test?
Yes, it was. And with the exception of the ground crew, only 3 men came in contact with the plane.
Oh, who were they?
Well, of course, it was Malloy, the pilot who was killed.
Yeah?
And then there was McGraw, who was another pilot, and Jaeger, who was the chief mechanic.
When could I question these two?
Right away, if you want to. I've got them waiting in the next room. I'll call them in here. McGraw, Jaeger, come in, please.
Go, Lieutenant.
Boys, this is Inspector Dunn.
How you doing, gentlemen? Sit down, won't you?
McGraw here was to have been the pilot in the test. But he fractured his wrist a few days ago, so Malloy had to take over.
You certainly were lucky, McGraw. You could have been in that crash instead of the other fellow.
Yeah, you said it.
Tell me, Jaeger, what were your duties around the A-92 as chief mechanic?
Well, after the ground crew got finished with the plane, I'd make the final check.
Did you do that the day the A-92 crashed?
Yes, Inspector, and I didn't find anything wrong with it. Can't understand it. That fighter could have been the most powerful thing on wings if it hadn't cracked up. There was nothing the A-92 couldn't do.
She'd have made airplane history. Malloy, he didn't trust any of these new grease monkeys. He always wanted the plane to be given a last okay by Jaeger.
Say, Inspector, would you like the names of the ground crew? There might be a phony among them.
No, Jaeger. I think I've got our saboteur.
What do you mean?
I mean, he's in this very room.
Well, don't just sit there, Inspector. Tell us who he is.
Yes.
Certainly, gentlemen. Our combination murderer and saboteur is none other than Chief Mechanic Jaeger.
What clue led the inspector to believe that Jaeger is the guilty one? We'll give you the solution in a moment. But first...
I do have to ask one question.
Only one? That's a first.
I'm pretty sure that the NCIS can handle a murder case. They do it all the time on the TV show.
That is not a question.
Okay, then. Why call in the police in a military matter?
That is a question. My response is, when do these mysteries ever make sense?
British guy, that is a better question.
And now, back to our story.
What, me, a saboteur? Well, my job is to repair planes, not to destroy them.
And your job is also to give the final okay on the A-92.
Yeah, but...
If anything had been done to the plane prior to your inspection, you would have noticed it. But no, there was nothing wrong with the A-92 till you gave it a final check and sabotaged it.
But, Inspector, why would he do a thing like that?
Possibly for money, or maybe a possible grudge. I don't know now, Lieutenant, but I think the boys at headquarters will get that out of him quick enough. Come on, Jaeger, we're going to take a little ride.
Okay, now I know this is gonna sound obvious,
Then don't say it.
but
No, really. Don't make another dumb statement that will make me make fun of you.
what? Are you going to turn over a new leaf?
No, not at all. I am running out of bad dad jokes.
Oh, so it's all about you.
Yes, and these silly mysteries.
Is that you say?
Hello, and welcome to the podcast. Today's show is full of snakes.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Hey, I don't make these topics up. They just happen. We have a ghost snake, a golden snake, and even a Johnny Is It True all about snakes. So many snakes, it's hard to shake a stick at them.
How would that help?
It wouldn't, but it couldn't hurt. In fact, the only thing that isn't about snakes is this from Audible. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Audible has sponsored the show now since July of 2019. We have reviewed more than 140 audiobooks, and the list keeps growing. Did you know that Audible has over 200,000 books available? And a lot of those are included in the free catalog. Audible is amazing and is the perfect companion to Ron's Amazing Stories. If you like this podcast, you're gonna love Audible. So what am I listening to? The Caves of Steel, Robots, Book 1 by Isaac Asimov, narrated by William Dufresne. A millennium into the future, two advancements have altered the course of human history: the colonization of the galaxy by the spacers and the creation of the positronic brain. Isaac Asimov's robot novels chronicle the unlikely partnership between a New York City detective and a humanoid robot. Detective Elijah Bailey had little love for either the arrogant spacers or their robotic companions. The challenge now is that he must learn to work with robot Daniel Oliva. Here is a clip from the book.
You want a C6 rating, don't you? Did he? Bailey knew the privileges a C6 rating carried. A seat on the expressway in the rush hour, not just from 10 to 4. Higher up on the list of choice at the section kitchens. Maybe even a chance at a better apartment and a quota ticket to the solarium levels for Jessie. I want it, he said. Sure, why wouldn't I? But what would I get if I couldn't break the case? Why wouldn't you break it, Lige? The commissioner wheedled. You're a good man. You're one of the best we have. But there are half a dozen men with higher ratings in my department section. Why should they be passed over? Bailey did not say out loud, though his bearing implied it strongly, that the commissioner did not move outside protocol in this fashion, except in cases of wild emergency. The commissioner folded his hands. 2 reasons. You're not just another detective to me, Lige. We're friends, too. I'm not forgetting we were in college together. Sometimes it may look as though I have forgotten, but that's the fault of rating. I'm commissioner, and you know what that means. But I'm still your friend, and this is a tremendous chance for the right person. I want you to have it. That's one reason, said Bailey without warmth. The second reason is that I think you're my friend. I need a favor. What sort of favor? I want you to take on a spacer partner in this deal. That was the condition the spacers made. They've agreed not to report the murder. They've agreed to leave the investigation in our hands, In return, they insist one of their own agents be in on the deal, the whole deal. It sounds like they don't trust us altogether. Surely you see their point. If this is mishandled, a number of them will be in trouble with their own governments. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, Lige. I'm willing to believe they mean well. I'm sure they do, Commissioner. That's the trouble with them. The Commissioner looked blank at that, but went on. Are you willing to take on a spacer partner, Lige? You're asking that as a favor? Yes, I'm asking you to take the job with all the conditions the spacers have set up. I'll take a spacer partner, Commissioner. Thanks, Lige. He'll have to live with you. Now, hold on. I know. But you've got a large apartment, Lige. 3 rooms. Only 1 child. You can put him up. He'll be no trouble at all, and it's necessary. Jessie won't like it, I know that. You tell Jessie. The Commissioner was earnest. So earnest that his eyes seemed to bore holes through the glass discs blocking his stare. That if you do this for me, I'll do what I can when this is all over to jump you a grade. C7, Lige. C7. All right, Commissioner. It's a deal. Bailey half rose from his chair, caught the look on Enderby's face, and sat down again. There's something else? Slowly, the Commissioner nodded. One more item. Which is? The name of your partner. What difference does that make? The spacers, said the Commissioner, have peculiar ways. The partner they're supplying isn't... Bailey's eyes opened wide. Just a minute. You've got to, Lige. You've got to. There's no way out. Stay at my apartment? A thing like that? As a friend, please. No. Lige, I can't trust anyone else in this. Do I have to spell it out for you? We've got to work with the spacers. We've got to succeed if we're to keep the indemnity ships away from Earth. But we can't succeed just any old way. You'll be partnered with one of their R's. If he breaks the case, if he can report that we're incompetent, we're ruined anyway. We, as a department. You see that, don't you? So you've got a delicate job on your hands. You've got to work with him, but see to it that you solve the case and not he. Understand? You mean cooperate with him 100%, except that I cut his throat? Pat him on the back with a knife in my hand? What else can we do? There's no other way out. Lige Bailey stood irresolute. I don't know what Jessie will say. I'll talk to her if you want me to. No, Commissioner. He drew a deep, sighing breath. What's my partner's name? R. Daniil Oliva. Bailey said sadly. This isn't a time for euphemism, Commissioner. I'm taking the job, so let's use his full name. Robot Daniil Oliva.
Caves of Steel is a science fiction novel by Isaac Asimov. It is a detective story that illustrates an idea that he advocated for, and that was that science fiction can be applied to any genre. Caves of Steel was a work that combined the detective novel with science fiction. The book was first published as a serial in Galaxy magazine from October to December in 1953. A double-day hardcover followed in 1954. At the time Asimov was writing The Caves of Steel, it was completely separated from his famous Foundation series, which can now be found on Apple TV as a series. Pretty good, by the way. However, we were to find out that the main character, Robot Daniil Oliva, would be introduced some tens of thousand years later and would play a key role in the eras of both the Empire and the Foundation. This became Asimov's crowning achievement that he tied all of his works together. How about that? Do you want to hear the story that started it all? Well, head to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories and you can have The Caves of Steel for free. Here is what Audible has set up for us. They are offering a free audiobook and 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out their service. This also gains you access to the included catalog, which is updated constantly with new titles. So to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Thank you, Audible. And now, it's time for your stories.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
Our story this week comes from Jeremy Rains, who lives in Atlanta, Georgia. He has titled his story, Why Did It Have to Be Snakes? This is the second time we've used this title for a story from you guys. Here is Jeremy's story. Hello, Ron. I want to start out by saying that I hate snakes. Georgia is fortunate to have among the highest biodiversity of snakes in the United States with 46 species. Snakes can be found in the mountains of northern Georgia to the barrier islands along the Atlantic coast. The rich diversity of snake species makes Georgia ideal for observing and learning about snakes. But no one ever told me that there were ghost snakes. Yes, you heard that right. My wife and I had just moved from Atlanta to Cordell. It is a small town in the southern part of the state. My work took me there to take over a coal mining project that was begging for fresh management. I was excited at the prospect of being out of the big city and moving on to small town life. Things went well at work. I was received with open arms, and after a few short weeks, the mine was back on track and we were settling in. My wife and I decided it was high time we explored the countryside and planned a fishing trip to the Flint River area. We made our camp near Angus Golson Nature Park. We picked an open camp area, no set sites or other campers around, and all you need is a permit for setup and one for a fire pit. It was all rather wonderful. That is, until that night. Most ghost stories start out the same way. We were minding our own business, blah, 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 blah. This one starts out strange and gets stranger. I was asleep when I felt something in my sleeping bag. I knew that a snake had crawled in. Not knowing what kind, I quietly called out for my wife. We were both terrified. I could feel the thing moving around. It was real. My wife got out of her bag and switched on the lantern. She could also see the thing moving. We both tried not to scream. As I mentioned, we were alone. She went for her phone, but as you might guess, there was no cell service. The odd thing is that the snake kept moving around. Normally they crawl in to get warm and then go to sleep. I could feel this thing writhing about, and my wife could see it moving as well. Finally, we made a plan. She would carefully unzip the bag to get a look at the snake to determine what kind of trouble we were in. I remember hearing the sound of the bag and still feeling the snake moving around my leg. After about 5 minutes of careful unzipping, she was able to lift the bag up. Slowly she peered in using a small penlight. There was silence. Then she let out a gasp. I felt a surge go through my body. It was bad, I thought. Real bad. Then she laughed and said, "There is nothing in your bag," and threw off the cover. Sure enough, there was no snake, nothing at all. However, we both saw it moving, and I felt it. What happened? What was it? Neither of us were ever able to figure it out. I tried to do some research, but I couldn't find any story like mine. Did we both dream this? That seems rather unlikely. The only ghost I can find in the area involves a headless horse discovered by Dink Melvin. The ghost that Dink describes, most eloquently I might add, is in the shape of a big white horse without a head. Dink says that he's been seeing it in the area for 5 or 6 years. Its trysting place is along the banks of the Flint River, and Dink says that he can show it to any man who is willing to go out with him after nightfall. If he gets in his boat and rows across the river, the big white horse follows him to a certain place and then disappears. Not a snake, but at least it's another animal ghost. Jeremy Rains, Atlanta, Georgia. Well, Jeremy, I couldn't find a single ghost snake story anywhere on the internet. That makes your story very strange and very unique. Thank you for sharing it with us. Well, that's our story for this time. If you have one that you would like to share, head to the main website at ronsamazingstories.com and click on the submission banner. Leave your story, give it a title, and tell me where you're from. I'll read it if I can. Our featured story is all about snakes. Sort of. It's also about greed, want, and adventure. What we have is an exciting story of supernatural Mayan priests and a lost temple of gold in the Yucatan. A pilot finds an offer of a job in Mexico too financially attractive to turn down. But when he arrives, it turns out that the rewards are far greater than he could have ever imagined, and if things couldn't get any better, he'll be working alongside a very beautiful young woman. Unfortunately, there is a downside. Everyone that has been involved with the expedition in the past seems to be dead. The story is titled The Golden Snake, and it first aired on the OTR series Escape on April 14th, 1950.
Tired of the everyday routine? Ever dream of a life of romantic adventure? Want to get away from it all?
We offer you Escape. Escape, designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight, we escape to Yucatan with a man and woman who dare defy the curse of the ancient priests of Maya to find a hidden jungle shrine and millions in jewels and gold. As Les Crutchfield and Paul Pierce tell it in The Golden Snake.
It was mid-morning of the fourth day south from New Orleans when the rusty little freighter Carib Lady dropped a hook a mile off the port of Progreso and the broad-beam tender warped alongside. The port itself and the jungle peninsula of Yucatan beyond lay in steamy lethargy beneath an early blazing tropic sun. I was in a hurry. I wanted customs clearance as quickly as possible for myself and the helicopter I brought with me. Then I wanted a few bottles of that subtly bitter beer that they brew in Monterey. My mysterious employer, Dr. Conrad, was waiting at the Itza Hotel in Merida, 24 miles inland. But in heat like this, he could wait a few hours longer.
I beg your pardon.
Well.
I presume you're Stephen Lane.
Yeah, good presumption, you're right.
Well, I'm Gail Barry.
Hello, Gail.
I'm Dr. Conrad's secretary.
Oh. I begin to see how the jungle might have certain compensations.
Oh, you better slow down, Mr. Lane. You're going pretty fast, even for a pilot.
Helicopter pilot. Not so much on speed, but I do a lot of hovering, especially around green-eyed girls and cold bottles of beer. Would the former like to join me over the ladder?
I hope you can hang on to that sense of humor. You'll need it before this is over.
Before what's over?
A little late for curiosity, isn't it? You've already taken the job.
Yeah, sure. I was flat broke. When that $1,500 check of Conrad's went through the Miami bank like greased lightning, I pulled out my curiosity and cut its throat.
But now it's beginning to revive. Is that it?
I'm sorry, baby. I didn't know this was a state secret.
It isn't. You were hired to fly Dr. Conrad from Merida to a destination within a 200-mile radius and return for a fee of $5,000. What's secret about it?
Purpose of this trip, for one thing.
To visit ancient Mayan ruins buried in the jungle and only accessible by helicopter. Dr. Conrad is an archaeologist.
Must be a fairly profitable racket.
No, there's no profit in it at all.
No?
But, Steve, you said you were broke. Would a lot of money interest you? A lot more than $5,000?
How much more?
100 times that much.
Yeah? Yeah, I'd be interested. So?
Check through customs. And let's have that bottle of beer.
We had the beer, all right. But we didn't have any more conversation about money. Gail was beautiful, vivacious, and talkative, but on that subject, she clammed up tight. But at certain times and with certain people, money isn't everything. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon before we took off in the helicopter and flew south to Merida and Dr. Conrad.
You can look down from this balcony, Mr. Lane, and there lies the town of Merida, all silver in the moonlight. And you think it is nothing unusual, perhaps, but the town is Spanish, and beyond it is the jungle. And the jungle is still pure Mayan.
Unconquered, old, and wise. Yeah, I've heard that theory before, Dr. Conrad.
And you disagree with it, perhaps?
I don't know. I've been watching some of the natives around the hotel here this evening, and there is something about their expression or their eyes. I don't know.
Well, I've spent my life studying them, and I do know, Mr. Lane. The Mayans are one of the oldest and strangest races on the face of the earth. The jungle out there swallowed up their pyramids and their temples long ago, and the Spanish conquerors destroyed their records and writings. But they still speak the language, and they still remember. I think it's something in their eyes, as you noticed.
About the trip that we're going on, is it to one of these ruined temples or pyramids?
Yes.
Where?
South and east, more or less. Within 200 miles of here. We'll have to follow landmarks.
You've been there before, then?
Yes. There are no trails and no water. Snakes, army ants, fever. Average progress is 2 miles a day.
And I assume that the purpose of the trip is archaeological exploration?
Of course, Mr. Lane. I would have no...
Dr. Conrad, I checked the invoices for the equipment. They're all correct. I left them in your room.
Fine. Thank you, Miss Barry. I'll sign them later.
All right, Dr. Conrad. I'll be in my room if you want me for anything. Good night, Mr. Lane.
Oh, good night, Miss Barry. Look, Dr. Conrad, I think it's about time you told me the real purpose of this trip. Huh?
But I did tell you. What makes you think that there
Look, $5,000 is too much money for a 3-day flying trip to look over some ruins. So?
Mr. Lane, can you keep your mouth shut?
That depends.
There'll be more in it than $5,000 if it goes all right.
Illegal, I suppose?
No, but dangerous. More dangerous than you can ever imagine.
What kind of danger?
From the Mayans. This involves a violation of the most sacred shrine in their history, the theft of their most sacred object, one they won't even admit exists.
Oh, treasure hunt, huh?
Not a hunt, Mr. Lane. I've seen the object. I know where it is.
Is, Miss Barry in on this?
She's merely the secretary of a scientific expedition. You and I are the only ones who know different.
What about the men who were with you before?
They were interested only in the ruins. They never saw the treasure.
Yeah, but they do know the location of the place.
No, Mr. Lane. Not anymore.
Well, why not?
Because all 4 of them are dead.
Yes. I can also tell you why Dr. Conrad didn't want to talk about it, Steve. It's because of that obsession of his. That fear of the Mayans and their vengeance.
Yeah, but you feel it yourself. You told me earlier.
No. Not fear. Something else. Something deeper. Oh, Steve, please, get out of my room now. If Dr. Conrad found you in here, it would ruin everything.
Honey, look, if I'm going to play games, I've got to know the odds.
But I've already told you, Dr. Conrad had nothing to do with their deaths.
I know. 4 fatal accidents within a year. What kind of accidents?
Different kinds. The first one happened 6 months after the joint expedition. Dr. Bentley and the original pilot took off from Merida and crashed in the jungle 10 miles from town. They were both killed. The native guide got out with a broken leg.
I see.
2 months later, Dr. Pelton started overland through the jungle. A week out of Merida, he was bitten by a snake and died at one of the native Chicle camps.
And the other man?
His name was Dr. Blom. He tried to come north from Guatemala by canoe and was drowned when it capsized.
Oh, by himself, was he?
No. His native guide recovered the body.
Native guide. In every case, it was a Mayan native. In at the death, you might say.
Yes. That's what worries Dr. Conrad.
Look, were all of these men trying to get back to that same temple?
I think so.
Because of the treasure?
Probably. They knew they'd found the long-lost temple of Kukulkan. And they knew the legends.
All right. Where do you fit in?
What's the difference, Steve? You don't mind, do you?
Mine? I like it. I also like to know the score.
I'll do better by you than Conrad would. Much better.
All right, baby. I'll buy that. Only there's one thing. Conrad hasn't told this to anybody before. How did you find out?
From my father, Steve. Before he was drowned in a river in Guatemala. My real name is Blom.
Yeah, I'd figured. Even though she'd never been to Yucatan before, she'd learned enough Mayan history and legend from her father to worm her way into Conrad's employ. The treasure, whatever it was, belonged to her as much as to Conrad. And given halfway even odds, I'd rather play Gail's game any day in the week and twice on Sundays. I lay on the hammock in my room for an hour, I guess. The lamp out, the moonlight splotching silver patterns through the bamboo slats of the blinds. I smoke one cigarette after another while I try to fit all the pieces into place. I was tired, but I'd had several drinks of Johnny Walker that I'd brought along, and I wasn't asleep, that's for sure. So I don't know why I didn't hear the door open.
Please do not be alarmed, Senor Lane.
Huh?
Lie still, make no outcry, and listen. You will not be harmed.
For some odd reason, I couldn't move. I couldn't cry out. It took great effort just to turn my head and look at him.
It is our desire to warn you because you are not aware of the thing you dare to do. Dr. Conrad knows, and he deserves no warning.
In the scattered moonlight, I could see very little of his face except the eyes. The eyes of a Mayan. They seem very wise and 1,000 years old, like the eyes of newborn babies.
I say to you once, and only once, go not to the temple of Kukulkan.
There seemed to be a strange music playing far off.
The plumed serpent of gold must lie hidden for 5,000 years, and the time is not yet. To alter the time is to die.
For just an instant, the moonlight shifted, and I saw the golden band around his forehead, raised in the front and fashioned into the feathered head of a snake.
You have been warned, Senor Lane. I go.
The closing of the door seemed to break the spell, and I lunged for the pistol on the table beside my bed. Only it wasn't a bed, it was a hammock. Oh, confound it!
Senor Lane!
Oh!
Senor Lane, is anything wrong?
Oh!
Senor Lane!
Come on in!
I was passing along the hall. I heard a noise.
Who are you, anyway?
Rodolfo Moreno. I am the night clerk.
Look, did you see the man who came out of my door just before the noise?
What, senor? No one came out.
What?
Well, I was only a few feet away. The hall is well lighted.
But there was someone in here. I saw him. I heard him talking. He was a Mayan.
Senor Lane, sometimes one from the north requires a day or two for becoming accustomed to the tropics. And I must tell you, the beer in Mexico is a little more strong than you may think.
No, wait a minute.
So you sleep now, we talk about it mañana, eh? Buenas noches, senor. Buenas noches.
There wasn't much point in doing anything but follow the night clerk's advice. I couldn't very well go to Conrad and tell him a mysterious Mayan had come to my room to warn me. When the clerk had sworn he'd seen no one. I didn't see how Gail could help much. I didn't want to worry her without some definite reason. So, after a long time, I grew drowsy and fell asleep.
Senor Lane, wake up. It is I, Moreno. Wake up, senor.
All right. Wait a minute. What is it, Moreno? What's wrong?
Your friend, senor. El Dr. Conrad. His heart, I think.
What? What do you mean?
Well, I hear him cry out. I go for help, but it was too late, senor. He is dead.
And now, for the second act of Escape.
I went with the night clerk to Dr. Conrad's room. Met the local physician who'd been called to the hotel. Told him to go ahead with whatever arrangements were necessary. There seemed nothing else to do. Dr. Conrad had died in his bed, apparently unmolested. His room was undisturbed, and Moreno, who from his desk had a clear view the length of the hall, said that no one had entered or left. Apparent cause of death, heart failure. But in a room a half hour later, Gail disagreed with such a simple verdict.
There was nothing wrong with his heart, Steve. He died of fright. Sheer fright. I know he did.
All right, honey, all right. But what caused the fright?
The Mayans. Maybe the same one you said came to your room.
No, I'm not sure whether anyone did or not. Maybe the night clerk was right. Maybe I imagined it.
He is a native, you know.
Another Mayan, huh? Well, I could have been dreaming, or drunk. I don't know.
It won't work, Steve. How could you have dreamed up the gold band he wore on his head? The same band worn by the high priest of Kukulkan 1,000 years ago.
I don't know. That's what gets me.
Had you even heard of the plumed serpent of gold before?
No.
Or the 5,000 years of hiding?
No, of course not.
They're all a part of Mayan legend, Steve. You had to learn them somewhere.
Gail, you said Conrad had an obsession. What about you?
I don't know. Before I came to Yucatan, I had only one idea. To get my share of that treasure one way or another. Mayan legends were nothing more than that. But down here, it's different. Things touch you somehow. Inside.
You mean you're scared, isn't that it?
Not exactly. It's something deeper. I don't know.
And against that something deeper, there are how many dollars?
Around 2 million, I think, from things Dr. Conrad let slip.
How did he plan to dispose of the thing?
There's a buyer in Mexico City. No questions asked. Conrad wanted his name kept out of it.
Native vengeance again, huh?
Yes.
Look, will this buyer deal with us?
Of course. Why should he care who brings it?
Do you know the landmarks of the pyramid? This temple of Kukulkan?
Yes, but... Steve, I am not sure, but...
Look, honey, look. I've got a helicopter out there at the edge of town. Within 200 miles is a fortune for the taking. Baby, I've been broke too much of my life to back down from a few pipe dreams and a heart attack. How about it, baby, huh?
Oh, it's no fun to be broke.
Yeah, but it might be a lot of fun if we weren't.
You're awfully hard to resist.
Oh, I hope so, baby. Because I've got some other ideas, too, you know. What do you say?
Oh, if I said no, I'd be a fool, I suppose.
Oh, then don't say it. We'll both be over the jitters by morning. And one thing, we won't have to worry about accidents. Our expedition won't have any Mayans along.
Oh, Steve. I told you Dr. Blom was my father. He met my mother in Mexico City. She died right after I was born. But she came originally from Yucatan. And she was a Mayan.
Can you tell now, Gail? Are you sure this is it? We won't land if you're not.
I think so. There's the old stone roadbed in the jungle to the south. The pyramid runs southeast-northwest. The temple ruins are at the north. The jungle has grown up over the west slope. All the landmarks check, Steve. This is it.
All right, honey, hang on. We're going down. The Mayans didn't know it, but when they built these pyramids flat top, they were getting ready for the helicopters. We're down.
It's terribly quiet, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, especially after hearing that egg beater for the last 3 hours. Well, may as well have a look. Come on, jump, baby. I'll give you a hand.
Thanks.
Well, they've certainly let the old place run down.
It's lain here like this for more than 1,000 years, Steve. Full moons and dark moons, rains, lightning, sun and wind. Nothing moving. Only the jungle, growing and growing and creeping up over it.
Hey, now, baby, relax.
We shouldn't have come here at all. We are only interlopers, strangers, not wanted.
Well, maybe they like us better when we're rich, huh?
There's no use joking about it, Steve. I think you feel it, too. We are in some terrible danger here, some kind we've never known before. It's like we're being watched. Only there are no watchers.
Well, not unless you count that parrot there in the lianas.
A parrot. A feathered bird. A feathered snake.
Now, look, Gail, look, we've talked this all out. We're here now. We're going to go through with it. I admit that I feel just as... Well, this morbid talk of yours isn't helping anything.
I'm sorry, Steve. I feel so strange. Oh, it's just nerves. Forget it.
Okay, baby. It's a deal. Come on. Let's go find that cave. Gail had learned from Dr. Conrad that the treasure lay in a chamber inside the pyramid, reached by a tunnel which opened somewhere along the west face. And the length of rope he'd specified in the equipment, we knew about how far down the west face. So we started working our way along at that level. Gail carried the rope, flashlights, and a hacksaw, while I swung a machete against the lush growth the jungle had made every yard of progress a measure of hard work and sweat. It was late afternoon before I slashed through a green thicket of banana palms and saw it before me, black and forbidding. Framed in hieroglyphic stone was the squat, square mouth of the tunnel. Its floor was paved with bricks velveted in green moss, undertrodden for centuries. A cool draft floated out against the jungle heat, inviting and repelling. Gail and I looked at one another for a long moment, saying nothing. And then, flashlights in hand, we walked into the tunnel. Careful, honey, careful. The ceiling is low in places.
I'm watching, Steve. There may be snakes.
Our boots ought to protect us. Seems to be widening out a little.
I think maybe... Yes. There's a room right ahead, Steve.
Good. Wonder if there's anybody home.
Steve, don't joke, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, honey. Here we are.
Oh, it's a big room.
Yeah. I'll say it is, and I wonder where it's...
Steve! Swing your light over there. Look.
On a raised stone dais in the center of the cave, gleaming and glittering in the blaze of our lights, was a great figure wrought in plates of pure gold. A massive golden snake studded and jeweled with feathers of cut emerald.
Steve, it's Kukulkan, the plumed serpent of gold.
$2 million, baby. 3 million is closer, maybe 4. Why, the gold alone and those emeralds.
Let's go now. Now, Steve, before it's too late.
That must weigh a ton. Now I see why Conrad included hacksaws in the equipment. Here, honey, you owe my light.
What are you going to do?
Old money bags has to be cut up before we can pack them out. May as well see how much of a job it'll be.
Steve! No!
Yeah, what's the matter?
There's something here. Something old and wise and powerful. It's watching us. I can feel it.
Oh, now wait, baby. Don't...
Anyway, it's really too late to do anything today. We've seen it now, Steve. Let's leave it just the way it is. Just until tomorrow. It's almost dark now. Please. Please, Steve.
All right, Gal, all right. Come on, let's get out of here. I pitched our camp on the level top of the pyramid, not far from the helicopter. Spread our sleeping bags and built a fire in a pile of stones. It was dark by the time we'd eaten, and a round full moon flooded the ruins and the miles of empty jungle with an eerie light. I lay back and I watched Gail sitting across the fire from me, staring into the strange night, lost in her own thoughts. An odd thing had happened while I was gathering rocks for the fireplace. I'd lifted a large flat stone and found under it a golden band like the one worn by the Mayan who'd come to my room. Gail had put it on her head without a word, and it fit perfectly. She still wore it, and now and then the polished gold caught flashes of light from the fire and from the moon. It was very late when I drifted off to sleep. It must have been a sound that woke me, but I think it was the odor that seeped into my sleep. That was it, the odor, pungent, aromatic, and for a moment, unidentifiable. And then I came suddenly awake, saw by the fire's embers that Gail's sleeping bag was empty. I sprang to my feet. At the moment, I recognized the odor of raw gasoline. Saw the dark surface of the helicopter glistening and wet in the moonlight, and saw Gail walking toward it with a flaming stalk of dry thatch in her hand. Gail! Gail, what are you doing? No, stop it! She paid no attention, stood like a sleepwalker watching the burning plane she'd set afire, the golden band gleaming on her forehead. Then I was running, stumbling headlong toward her. Gail! Gail, come back, Gail! She didn't hear me. She moved slowly away, looking towards something that I couldn't see beyond the fire. Nor did I see the vine that caught my foot and sent me crashing onto the sharp rock. I lay there on the ground, unable to move, half blinded by concussion. By the blood that ran into my eyes, I tried to call out again and could make no sound. I could see Gail moving away past the burning plane, swaying as she walked, trance-like and alien. I seemed to hear again the weird music of Merida far off somewhere in the night. And then, in truth or in delirium, in the shadows, past the fire, I saw them waiting for Gail. They were clothed in white, and their eyes were Mayan, wise and old and powerful. And on each forehead gleamed a golden band, the high priests of Kukulkan.
Senor, you feel better now, no?
Better? I don't know. Who are you?
Only a poor farmer, senor.
Farmer? Where am I?
In my casa, senor. You have been very ill from a bad wound to the head.
But how did I get here?
3 days ago, you come from the jungle, fell at my door. I take care of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Sometimes you fight with me, say crazy words. But I know it is only the head is broken.
I was running. I fell against a rock. I just can't remember much after that.
No matter, senor. Tomorrow I take you to Merida.
To Merida? But how can you?
But so simple. In my cart with the burro. It is only 7 miles.
7 miles? But I was 200 miles from here.
Quien sabe, senor. 3 days ago you come out from the jungle.
Tell me something. Are you a Mexican?
Pues, senor, I am a citizen of Mexico, but by birth, I am Mayan.
I have flown 5 times since into Yucatan, into the dark lands and the uncharted jungles. I've searched through tumbled ruins, moss-grown, rotted. I built fires on ancient pyramids at night and cried aloud to the silent moon. But never again found the temple of Kukulkan, nor the plumed serpent of gold, or a beautiful girl named Gail. And I know I never will.
Well, that was an adventure, but with a warning. Greed is a snake best avoided. Yeah, I made that up myself. Could you tell? Escape was radio's leading anthology series of high adventure, airing on CBS from 1947 to 1954. Since the program didn't have a regular sponsor, it was subject to frequent schedule shifts and a lower production budget. Despite this, Escape enthralled many listeners during its 7-year run. Of the more than 230 episodes made, most have survived in good condition. Excellent, actually. Escape also did something that most series failed to do, and that was to provide many different genres of storytelling. One week it could be an adventure, the next suspenseful, then maybe a science fiction drama, and finally something truly horrific. No one ever really did that. This made the series very popular with all kinds of people, including this old podcaster. How about that?
Johnny, is this true?
Okay, I like to surf the internet looking for stories and other oddities. I do this in the name of the podcast, but the truth is, it's fun to see what's out there. What you're about to hear is what I call...
Johnny, is this true?
I will tell you a story and then ask the question, did I make it up or is it true? Let's get started. Snakes are among the most deadly and dreaded animals. The word snake comes from the Indo-European base, meaning to creep or to crawl, which when you think about it makes sense. Snakes are everywhere. There are more than 3,000 species of snakes in the world, and there are at least one type of snake on every continent except Antarctica. Now this time on Johnny, Is It True?, we ask questions about our slithery friends, and it's your job to decide if it's true or not. Let's get started. Fact number 1. Snakes are wholly misunderstood. People should know that if a snake means to strike you, it will in fact warn by blinking its eyelids, a clear sign that you are in trouble. Now, does this make sense? Or is it just a bunch of hooey? Well, if you thought it was hooey, then you got it right. Snakes don't have eyelids. Also, they don't possess external ears, which makes them deaf. They hear from vibrations on the ground. So if you're waiting for that blink, well, I think you get it. Fact number 2. We've all heard of a hunger strike. You know, where a person wants to make a point and refuses to eat. The snake protests in their own way and will refuse to eat for up to 2 years. That is one heck of a protest, but is it true? It is a fact that some snakes survive without food for up to 2 years. Now, the point could be made that they're not doing so in protest, but it is something that they can and will do. Snakes can lower their metabolic rate by up to 70%, allowing them to survive prolonged periods without food. Doesn't sound very fun to me. Fact number 3. Brendan Michaels, who is an exotic snake trainer, has a rumble of rattlesnakes that he has taught to play a crude game of soccer. Instead of using a ball to score, these amazing snakes chase a mouse from one goal to another. Now, you might think this is cruel, but Brendan says, snakes gotta eat, why not have it be fun? Now, is this truth or a den of lies? Well, I personally hope this one's fake. After all, I totally made it up. As it turns out, snakes have an underdeveloped brain, which makes their ability to learn a big 0. So it would be impossible to teach a snake anything at all. Fact number 4. We all know that snakes can be venomous, meaning their bites can kill. But just how venomous can they be? Is there a limit to what they can kill? Well, the king cobra is one that probably should be avoided. Their bite has been known to kill an elephant. Now, this can't be right, can it? Oh yes, Mary, it can. The venom of the king cobra, the world's largest poisonous snake, has the ability to kill an elephant. A single bite can kill a human in 15 minutes and a full-grown elephant in a few hours. By the way, what makes these cobra kings is not their size or deadliness, it's that they eat other snakes. How about that? Well, that's all I have on snakes this time. I hope you learned a thing or two. I know I did. I will be avoiding the king cobra altogether. Until next time, this has been Johnny, Is It True? Do you have any strange but true stories you want to share? If you do, send them to ronsamazingstories@gmail.com and I'll use them if I can.
My dog's faster than your dog. My dog's bigger than yours. My dog's better 'cause he gets kennel ration. My dog's better than yours.
Kennel ration. The lean red meat he wants, the other good things he needs. Juicy, tender, and moist.
My dog's prettier, smarter, taller. My dog's better than yours.
Kennel ration.
Can you believe it? That was episode number 531, and Jeremy Rains provided us with a snake story. Did you like it? I did. And thank you, Jeremy. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button makes us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.